So just a little bit about Sue. She was born in Oakland, California. I know we have some people from Cali out here. She earned her bachelor's degree in biology and natural resources from the University of California, Berkeley, and her doctor of pharmacy degree from the University of California, San Francisco. So Sue was elected in 2006 and she ran unopposed in the Democratic primary, winning with 875 votes, and then winning the three-party November 7th, 2006 general election with 6,735 votes, which was 58% against an incumbent Republican representative. That's a big deal. 2008, she was unopposed again in the Democratic primary. I feel like there aren't too many Democrats out there, but... Okay, so in 2008, she was unopposed in her election on May 27, 2008, winning with 1,200 votes, and then winning the November 4th general with 9,900 votes against Daniel Loughery, who's a Republican. 2010, Chu and Loughery were both unopposed for their primary, setting up a rematch. Chu won the May 25th, 2010 Democratic primary with 766 votes. Turnout for the November 2nd general election was lower by nearly 6,000 votes than in 2008. I'm curious to hear what happened there. With Susan winning by 5,500 votes, which was 59% against Loughery. And then in 2012, challenge in May 15th, Democratic primary by Greg Nielsen, Chu won with 1,300 votes, which was 88% of the vote.
No, 89.5.
Actually, this says 88.9%, so even more. Oh, that's a...
Now, I wanted to point out,
Thank you.
that's the state record right there.
Yeah. She's really popular. And then she faced a three-party contest against Republican nominee Chad Inman and Libertarian nominee Mikkel Hotzinger for the general election in November of 2012. And then in 2014, you ran unopposed in both the primary and general election, which says a lot that no one wanted to even go up against you.
See, what happened was I was up north getting our first Native woman into office.
Wow.
So I was up there door knocking.
Yeah. So that was awesome. That was awesome stuff that you did. You've won 6 elections now. Is that how far we've come?
I don't know. When there's a race, I just put my head down and race. I don't know.
But you know, it shows a lot that in the general election you were able to win with probably a lot of Republican votes. And so I wanted to just tell the audience a little bit about yourself. What brought you to office? What brought you to run for office? Why did you move from Oakland to Idaho? So just tell us your story.
Okay. Now, before I start, I hope that you guys will let me acknowledge that we're on traditional territory of the Nakotak, which are Anacostan, and the Piscataway people. And I wish to acknowledge this in the hopes that all are recognized and agreements will be kept. So, all right. Now, you want to run that by me again? Now, what question?
Thank you for doing that. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you from Oakland to Idaho, and just your story of what inspired you to run for office.
Okay, so, you know, the thing is that I have a question for everyone in the audience. How many of you have any ancestors that came in the 1800s? Could you raise your hand? Anybody? Okay. So the thing is that we have a long trajectory to that win. And that was a win that was first Asian woman in Idaho to win and be in the State House. It's kind of a big deal for us. You know, so maybe like your families too. My family is sort of like we're, what is that guy's name now? Forrest Gump? You know how Forrest Gump in the movie, you see him sailing along all these monumental times, right? So my family was there too. So, you know, the thing is that in 1848, there was a gold rush, right? California. 1851, some Chinese workers came because there's a lot of poverty going on because the British had messed with our country back in China, right? 1861, there was rumblings, there was a civil war. That's when my family came over. It was my ancestors that were merchants. 1865, the railroad was being built, but it was running into some problems because there weren't workers that could survive the harsh conditions. And the Chinese workers took over the whole part, coming from the Pacific through those deadly mountains through the wintertime, so that in 1869 we could have those two railroads join together with that gold spike thing, right? Okay. So 1879, the Kwan family, so my mother's side of the family, had their first born citizen here in the US, but not a citizen because that's how it was back then. San Francisco, you guys know Dupankai? So that's DuPont Avenue. That's the middle, the center of San Francisco Chinatown. That's where she was born, the house there. And 1882, that was when we had the Chinese Exclusion Act. So that meant that no Asians, particularly Chinese, because they were concerned about labor, could come over here. And but there was an exception, and that was Chinese merchants could come because we needed their business and we needed their goods. So my family on my dad's side was sort of like Forrest Gump coming through until the Exclusion Act was taken away in the 60s. So in 1900, my mother's father was born over in San Francisco from my great-grandmother that was born in 1879, right? In 1905, you guys remember that San Francisco had a great earthquake, right? And the difficulty with it wasn't the earthquake, it was the fire that came afterwards that leveled the whole city. So there was this little family that had to get across the bay to Oakland. And it consisted of my grandfather, his two sisters, and his mother. He was missing his father because he had died the year before as a Chinese doctor bringing coolie labor to build the Panama Canal. So you see, my family, maybe some of your families too, were sort of like Forrest Gump in those days. We were there during these times. So 1900, also on my mother's side, we had someone born, and my grandpa, I didn't know this till lately, until my nephew Alan got into the history, and I talked with some of you guys yesterday. Some of you guys are really into history, and he found out that my grandpa had taken a ship over to America in 1915. You remember Chinese Exclusion Acts happening during that time, but like I said, he's from a merchant family, and his dad had already been here a couple years doing business and asked for his number 3 son to come on over and help him out. Okay, we didn't realize that. When I was growing up, all we knew was that in 1929, my dad was born here. And on that side of the family, that's the first person that was born in America. It's my father. He came with he came over in his mother's belly, right? And his big brother and his dad. So, you know, the thing is that times were hard then. I mean, you hear about the stuff that's been happening during all those times. There were murders, there were deaths, and I know that's a fact because, you know, when I went to school, you know, this is 1961, this is the civil rights time. The school that I went to, the reason why I was able to stand and bring that bullying bill with so much passion is because I lived the bullying, receiving end of it. And back in those days, there were some fourth grade boys that didn't like someone that was a non-white in their school. A little second grade girl, me. And they even split my head open, and the teachers just let me bleed. So, you know, it's like, that's the life. And what do? It's like, you just try to be tough. But nowadays, I try and be tough by being compassionate. You know, it's a big challenge, because in that darkness, you either have a choice to die young in darkness, or can you just sink your feet, you know, in this ground, this mud, right? And bloom like that lotus, right? So, that's kind of a long-winded answer, but I asked you if it was short or long, how did you want it? You know. So when I moved up to Idaho, I was just gonna go up there for a year. You know how that goes, right? I had gone to pharmacy school, kicking and screaming, because all the time growing up, my mother said, you should be a pharmacist because that's a good profession for a woman. And I'm like, I ain't doing it then. Right? I like to be running outside, you know, and I became a field biologist. But 2 years into it, I realized this chronic cold I had, because I was holding down 4 jobs to put myself through school. It wasn't. It was allergies. And, you relate to that, right? I remember driving from up in the sticks down to the Bay Area to see my doctor at Kaiser Permanente. You remember that hospital. We don't have any of those up in Idaho, not a big enough population, but I remember the doctor was looking down my nose. It was like, and he says, you have polyps. You know, if I had a cell phone, I would have looked it up. I didn't know what he meant. You know, and he says, and you're gonna go find a different profession, something indoor with air filters. And I'm like, oh. And guess what he said? Maybe a pharmacist. So I think I have a pharmacist in this room, do I? Okay. Oh, he heard about this pharmacy story and disappeared. Okay. So, you know, I want to be able to give back to my elders, you know, because without them, I don't know that I would have made it through, you know, because all of my parents, my aunts, my uncles, they're all working. They're all working. And me and my cousin Tina, we took care of all the other cousins because we're the oldest girls, you know. So if it wasn't for my elders that once in a while would help out a little bit, it was just too much, you know what I mean? So at that time, there was UC San Francisco. It's a kick-ass school. They had geriatrics, but I didn't want to go there again. I already had been there. And another one was back east. Oh, you know, like where we're sitting right now. But that was too far for me. I didn't understand East Coast people. I'm a West Coast person. So I thought the one that looked like it would be okay, and the only other one that offered geriatrics at that time for pharmacy was the VA hospital over in Boise. And so what did I do? I got on the phone because I found that there was one Chinese pharmacist up in Idaho, Sandy Jew. And I called her and I said, you got a residency that you're running, it's geriatrics, right? And she says, yeah. And I'm like, and you're from Sacramento, right? And she says, yeah. And I said, did anyone try and hang you? And she said, no, not up here, it's not too bad, Sue. And I'm like, all right. So I went up there to do the program. So, you know, the thing is that I'm minding my own business in, I don't know, what year was this? 2006. You know, taking care of my community, going to meetings I think is important, just supporting, because that's what we do, right? And then some guy, some politician, I don't like them, came to talk to me, and he said, I want you to run for office. Now, I don't know if you've picked it up from me in terms of my vibe, but 4-letter words, that's my way of speaking. And I threw some at him. You know. And, oh, you didn't see that? Oh, yeah, I'm pretty blue collar. That's my upbringing. My dad put himself through law school. And I should say, he went to law school because he's good with numbers and tried to get into a CPA program, but no one would allow him to do his internship hours. Because I told you about that war, you know, and folks like me, they thought we're Japanese. We're Chinese. But he used his GI Bill and tried to find a profession where he could hang his own shingle. So he's one of the first Chinese lawyers in California, and he started the Asian American Bar Association. So that's our people. But we're pretty blue collar, just kind of regular. And then 2 other people came and talked to me, and I kind of looked at him funny. I was like, no 4-letter words, so that's good, right? So finally, someone came that I actually admired. It was a lady that had been teaching poetry and stuff. And my nephew, Alan, you know, the historian, he came as an 8-year-old, and he loves Chinese history. So I was driving all around Idaho trying to find, you know, Chinese history up there, and there's a bit. Well, he took a class with Nicole Lefevre, Senator Nicole Lefevre, before she was a senator. And she came to talk to me and said, Sue, I need your help. And I'm like, running. And she says, yeah, my LGBTQ community needs your help. And I'm like, oh. And she says, I'll help you. And I'm like, well, I don't know. And she said, well, think about it. Dang it. You know, it's like, my style is to think about it. I sleep on it. And my dad at that time had already passed away. 1995 he passed away. But before he died, he asked all of his children to please get back to his community, to our community, right? Damn it, you know, when you sleep, things happen in your head. And I realized my community wasn't Oakland, California. It was Boise, Idaho, dang it. And I was like, oh, I think my pop would want me to give back. You know, and I'm looking around trying to rationalize. It's like, no, this can't be right, right? But then I remember people that that reminded me of the life conditions that I saw growing up in Oakland. People that were struggling for homes, people that were dealing with injustice. I know that. I see that as a pharmacist, right? People that didn't have health care. Folks that just didn't get a fair shake because they weren't born the right color, or they weren't born with the opportunities other people had. And you know, I come from a substance abuse background too. Not me, but you know, I've worked in that area quite a bit, and there seemed to be a need that way too. So I said, I'll run. Yeah, well, you know what happens? When you say you're gonna run, folks show up and look in your closet and take out your favorite clothes with the holes in them and throw them away. Right? And they say, you know what? You can't wear this JCPenney suit anymore. You gotta buy something that tags you as someone that has the social markings as someone that has more power than JCPenney. And I'm like, well, that's okay, because I couldn't zip up the back anyway. Right? And so, you know, the thing is that I ran, I got in. What else you gotta ask me?
Yes.
I'm back. So can you tell us about your campaign experience? So like from when you said you were declared to run, for the process of like getting signatures to just that whole experience.
Yeah, so I did go and gather signatures. For us, it's not as many as some of you guys, but I got those signatures together, and that was my opportunity to talk to people and let them know I'm running. Oh, sort of like this exercise we had this morning, something like that. And I did start door knocking, and I think it's our generational inheritance. We work very hard. So someone mentioned something about door knocking being important, and you guys know that, right? Okay, that was the first thing I thought I heard in this program, and it's exactly right, in my opinion. So I door knocked a lot. I had already gone through at least one pair of sneakers, right? And I ran into a little difficulty, you guys. I think it was September, maybe late August. It was hot. Boise, Idaho is the desert. It's hot. And I had gone out door knocking, and there was an older lady that was door knocking with me, but it was so hot. I just left her to door knock in the area where my car was so she could rest. And I was about 1.5 miles away door knocking, and it was getting to be about twilight. And it was an area in Boise that was still, they had 5-acre, 2.5-acre farms in a very urban area still. But I came onto a farm, and across the way, some guy with the skinhead, was yelling at me. And I turned around to address him, and then some other men came out with skinheads. And then a rope got thrown up over their pole. And, I had to deal with potentially getting hung. So, because there's no one around to help me, right? Suffice it to say, I'm here. We're good, right? And I thank my life condition and the way my ancestors taught me to be, because I had just been to a door where there was a gentleman that was a felon, so he can't vote. But I took the time, because that's just how we are, to tell him that here in Idaho, I know we're not in Idaho, pretend I'm here in Idaho, okay? That when you pay your debt back to society, you can vote again, right? And when the judge says that you gotta go through all these hoops and stuff like that, it ain't true. You just sign up your voter registration like every other Idahoan, right? And as a matter of fact, when you come in, you let me know, because I have a standby lawyer that's gonna be there talking to these people at the polls for you, right? And so he says, okay, Sue, I'm glad I did it. I didn't do it for any gain, but I had to go back to him and say, could you give me a ride with your 4-year-old son in your old station wagon past that place so I can get back to my car? And he did. So I was okay. The doors are interesting. And Idaho is a lot more friendly than some places are, at least in Boise. But it wasn't easy. We talk about a candidate that ran against me twice. I remember the gentleman, because I don't know if you guys noticed, but when you try and shake my hand, I go like this, or I give you my other hand, because he broke it. He broke my hand. So, the thing is that when you have a gentleman with that life condition where he knocks on someone's door and it's an elderly old lady or someone vulnerable, that says, no, I'm going to vote for Sue Chu, and that gentleman goes over and kicks their car or turns over their flower pot, for someone like me, I'm going to door knock pretty damn hard, right? Harder, kinder, better, right? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that answered it. Thank you for sharing all that. That was really powerful. Can you share with us some of your proudest accomplishments while you've been in the State House?
So, I don't know. The thing is that the way that I'm talking today is because I honor my ancestors. And the way I usually answer these questions is what we're able to do within the community, by the community. That's what I'm about. So I think my proudest moment was a couple. One of them was that anti-bullying bill. I think some of you had heard it in one of the rooms. But I had worked really hard for that bill, got it past the House. There was a little adventure there I shared. But it got past the House, it was over in the Senate, and dang it, the Senate is supposed to be the side that have, smart folks in it, unlike the rabble-rouser House side. But I wasn't sure I could get my anti-bullying bill through, and while we were moving it, there were kids that were dying by suicide every week while we were trying to move this damn bill, and I wasn't sure I could get it through. So I had a visit from a high school. It was my local high school, Bora High School. And 70 kids and their 3 teachers came pouring in, and we had to find a room big enough to jam them into, right? And I grabbed one of my friends. She just happened to be someone that was a co-sponsor on that anti-bullying bill. So we were telling them about how the legislature works and the different places and stuff. And I don't know, something in my head just sort of said, oh, by the way, do you guys want us to bring you up to speed with a couple bills we're working on? And they're like, yeah. I don't know. It was early in the morning and they actually said yes, they did. And so we told them about this anti-bullying bill. And then way in the back there, like where you're sitting, there was a little voice that came up. And she's like, Mr. Woodbridge! And we couldn't see anybody, and the kids had to kind of part a little bit so we could see her. It was this young lady in government class with all the other kids, and she said, I just started a Twitter account. And I'm like, I don't know what that is. And she said, Mr. Woodbridge, can we take the next 2 periods in our government class and call other government classes throughout the state and have the kids write on how bullying directly affects us for 20 minutes and post it in Twitter? And he said, I think I'll think about it. Well, he did think about it, and they did do that. And in 48 hours, I had so many co-sponsors from all over the state. Do you think that bill passed? It was kid power in 48 hours, right? Another one, if you don't mind. Okay. In 2016, so that was the election after I had been up for 2.5 months door knocking for our Native woman. We got her in. They weren't going to let me be unopposed again in a general. And there was a young lady that I had first met, not officially, but I heard her voice first when she was a 4th grader. And I was giving a little training for how to testify. For college students, maybe for high school students, if they're mature enough, right? Let this 4th grader have her father drive her over to the State House and sneak her in to my training. And when I was going, through the 3 groups, I heard this little kid voice, and it was this little girl, but she was right up there. She was struggling just as hard, but just as well as the college and high school students. When she was a 10th grader, so 2016, she came and said, can I run your campaign? And I'm like, I don't know. I have a campaign plan written up, Sue, And I'm like, oh, you actually read the books I gave you? The Wellstone book? Yeah, yeah. But Sue, I have to be gone to debate camp. 2 of them. I'll be gone for 10 weeks. And I'm like, I actually have an opponent, you know. And she said, but Sue, I got this handle. I really do. I'll do your campaign before 8 o'clock in the morning and after 10 o'clock at night.
Oh my God.
At debate camp. You know, the 2 most competitive ones in the US. And I'm like, I don't know. And she says, my baby brother will help. He'll stay in Boise. He'll help you. I look at him and it's like, he doesn't even talk to me. He won't talk to me. He sits in the back seat of the car when I stick my head in to say hello to his mother, and he won't talk to me. This one. You know, and I'm like, I don't know. You know. And then I got to tell you, for some dang reason, I slept on it, and somehow the answer said, yes, thank you, ancestors. It worked. Because, right? So, you know, the thing is that Kathy had 24 other debate students that didn't have to be in debate camp come help me with my campaign. You know, these are kids that when you door knock and someone asks about that minimum wage bill I'm running and they have an economics question, I'm there with this 16-year-old that just had economics that answered the damn question. Right? And the next day has a written white paper to bring to them. Right? So, and you know what? They show up and they don't say, hi, Representative Chu. They're just like, Kathy sent me. I don't care about you, but I know the app. You know, it's like, keep me humble, I guess. But you know, the thing is that the students did very well. And I think that they're achieving very well. And oh, should I tell you about what happened with Kathy? The 2nd grader, the 10th grader, and such like that? She got a free ride to Yale. She just finished her 1st year. Yeah. So, you know, the bills, we got some good bills through, but I think it's this. How do we raise our community? That's what I'm thinking.
Thank you. This will be the last question before we open it up to the audience, so for folks to just start thinking about questions for you. But what is something that you've learned throughout this process that you wish you knew, or just like a lesson learned throughout your political career?
Well, it's a lesson that I hope that you'll all take away, is that in this weekend that we've had, we have brothers and sisters that know what it is that we have to walk through, where majority culture colleagues don't get it. So I hope that you might be able to take advantage of leaving little messages on, well, I'm email, I guess you guys doing something else, but something like, you know, commiserating question mark, laughter. You know, so it's like, oh, you have to, okay. So hopefully we'll listen to each other and move each other to laughter so we can just get on with our work.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions for Sue? Yep, you can, there's like a microphone stand if you want to use it.